G'day guys, it's DP Bricks here with episode 14 of building a clone trooper artillery base in LEGO. You might have already seen from my community posts in the last couple of months, but unfortunately there was an accident with the MOC that happened when I was trying to adjust a piece in the interior. I'll put up some photos of how it ended up looking so you can kind of see the damage, but it did mean that I had to rebuild a lot of stuff, which took some work, but on the bright side it allowed me to adjust and add things to the MOC that I probably wouldn't have done if the MOC hadn't been damaged. This episode is pretty much going to be how I rebuilt everything and the adjustments I made to the build. I didn't film many time lapses for the rebuild progress early on because everything was all over the place and kind of in a mess, but I did get a little bit. So we'll start the episode off with those. So here's the MOC all back together again. I've had to rebuild pretty much the whole base and mountain. Obviously this front of the terrain was not damaged or anything, and I'd say a decent bit of the top part was also intact, but I had to rebuild some of the terrain and obviously the whole entire turbo laser. But that wasn't too much of a hassle actually, it came together pretty quickly. But yeah, while I was rebuilding it, I made a lot of changes. I'll quickly show you guys those changes that I made. So on the exterior, I decided to add a light at the front of the tunnel, which I think makes it a lot less dark, because before it used to be basically pitch black and you couldn't see anything in the tunnel. But now you can kind of see stuff in the tunnel, and probably in the final, when I'm placing all the minifigures, I'll definitely add a few minifigures in there, maybe coming out to fight the droids. But yeah, it definitely looks a lot better. The lights definitely make it look add a ton more depth kind of to the MOC, because before the lights were only in there, but now I've added some to the exterior of the build, which looks pretty good. And then I also changed the path outside the front of the tunnel. It used to end here and would just kind of lead to nothing, but now I've just continued the path to make it look like it's actually going somewhere. And yeah, I think it looks a lot better. And then one big thing I changed was the rock work. I pretty much rebuild it all, so it's all just updated, looks better. The tan down here transitions more seamlessly into the dark grey. And then I also changed a lot of the top bit here. I haven't finished this side yet, but as I'll discuss later, or as I'll show you guys later, I'll be fully rebuilding this whole strip like I did on this side. But yeah, that's pretty much all I changed for the exterior of the base. So in the interior of the base, I changed the armory here. The gun racks used to be angled, but now I just made them straight. And then I also changed the floor which they're on, made it all snot, so it just fits in more seamlessly with the other floor designs. And then I also changed the amount of these things here. There used to be 6, now there's only 4. I think it just looks a lot less cluttered. And then I also added this strip of dark red across here, which looks very nice. And then I also added this red light here and a few details below the walkway, which I also changed. And then on the other side, I added these sort of dark red details. They don't really mean anything, but I think they just fit the theme of a Republic base pretty well. I also added some greebling up here and another strip of dark red. And then in terms of the entire floor, I've changed a few things. You probably won't notice it, but the lines here, I changed a lot of them and where they were. And then I also changed just a few, there was a gap at the back here, so I added some tiles to fill that in. And then I also added these yellow things, which I think just add a nice pop of colour to the interior and when you're looking from the outside. But yeah, that's pretty much all the changes that I made when I was rebuilding the base. I'm pretty happy with them. I think they definitely make the base look a lot better than they used to, which is positive, you know, to take out of the whole base being destroyed. But yeah, it's pretty good that I've been able to make some improvements. Now what I'm doing is basically rebuilding the terrain on this side of the MOC so that I can rebuild the side in the same way as I did on the other side, which you can start to see me do. With the terrain done, I decided to make some changes to the landing pad by adding some lights, details, and changing the detachable bit in the middle. So as you guys just watched in the time lapse, I managed to complete the entire top part of the base, apart from this rock in the corner, which I don't have the parts for, but I do have some parts coming in on Bricklink, so I will be finishing that very soon, probably off camera. But in terms of what I did, mainly I'll show you guys the progress on the landing pad, because everything else in the terrain is just pretty boring. But the landing pad, I made some major changes, as you probably noticed already. I've got the lights on, so I've got these two lights here, which I think turned out great. I basically just, you can get this off. It's basically just a stack of a couple of translucent yellow pieces, and then above that is one of these, which basically makes the light look like a strip, I think, which is good because it reduces the intensity of the light, because without it, it's just kind of very like intense and messes with the cameras kind of, and also just looks weird from the eye, but it looks much better like this. And then in terms of the arrow design, I did change that. I moved it over this way, I think by one stud, and I also reduced the size It used to cover 4 bricks, now it's only 2, which I think looks cleaner and it just fits in better. And then here I also added a red light, as you can see. I think it looks very good. Here it's just a 1x1 translucent red stud with a light inside of it. And then I put this door thing on this grill plate on top of it, which I think looks pretty good. And then around the corner I've added another one of those doors things. This time I've got like a printed tile below it, which I think turned out pretty good. And in terms of the turbo laser, you might notice, you might not, but I did remove the lights that I had inside of it. Before I had 2 red bit lights inside the actual turbo lasers themselves, so if you'd look from this angle you'd see like a red light. Unfortunately I had to get rid of it because it was pretty inconvenient, because basically to have it work you have to have them plugged in to the power bank, which is below the turbo laser, and then you couldn't remove it when they were plugged in. So it was kind of just like, there's really no need to do it, and it wouldn't have been that bright anyway. Like you wouldn't have been able to see it unless you're looking from straight on. So yeah, I kind of just got rid of those. Moving on to the back of the MOC, here I just kind of redid a lot of the stuff. I redid this rock obviously, and I redid the battery pack area. So before it used to be a mess pretty much. It used to just be, the platform that was detached used to be just multiple plates, so it was very flimsy. But now I just made it one big plate, which is definitely much sturdier. And then as you can see here, I've got the 2 battery packs in here. They fit in pretty nicely. And I'll show you guys how it looks with it on. Can't see them from the side or anywhere, so they fit in very nicely. So in terms of what's next for the MOC, obviously I've finished everything there is to do on this base plate of the MOC, apart from that rock in the corner, which I discussed before. But this part is basically finished, so it just means this part is the only stuff that I need to finish. And as you can see, there's a few gaps in the terrain, but they're pretty easy to fill in. I just need to find the parts. I'm pretty sure I have enough terrain pieces. We'll see though. If I need more, I will have to make an order, or I have to compromise and just leave it pretty studded, which I don't think will matter that much, because next I will be building the trees. Obviously there'll be 5 trees I think in total, 2 on this side and 3 on this side I think. And hopefully those trees will distract from the terrain, which I won't make as detailed as the terrain up here, because the terrain up here is pretty detailed. But the terrain down here I don't need to make it as detailed, because I'm not sure. I think I might add foliage into the MOC, like ground shrubs and whatever, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm definitely adding trees, but I'm not sure about like adding little plants across the floor. If you guys can maybe give me some ideas for that in the comments. So that's going to be it for what was quite an eventful episode. I am happy with all the new details I managed to add to the MOC, especially the lights, which I think add a lot more interest to the build. I was also happy with how the new rockwork looks and the terrain as well. In the next episode, I will be designing the trees and finishing the front of the base, which I've already ordered some bricklink parts for. That episode will be the last episode before the finale, which is pretty exciting considering how long this series has drawn on for. So yeah, that's going to be it for episode 14. Thanks for watching.